Hey, awesome people of YouTube, welcome back to another Warhammer 40k Darktide video. In this one, we'll be talking about which staff is probably the best staff and which one I like to use. But before we get into it, I just want to remind that if we can get to 500 subscribers by November 1st, we'll be doing $50 gift card giveaway. If we reach it by November 12th, it'll be 25. And yeah, so subscribe. But let's talk about staffs. Staffs are specifically only for Psykers. You have 4 staffs. I try to craft them somewhat similar. You have the Trauma, Surge, Voidstrike, and Purgatus. Purgatus being the last one to be unlocked. Trauma is first, then it's Surge, Voidstrike, and then the last is Purgatus. It's nearly impossible to get every stats similar, so I want to damage, as close damage as I can, they're within a few. 74, 73, 76, 78. Well, let's start with the very first stat that you unlock is Trauma. So, your basic attack is literally just throwing a ball. As you can see, it does 158 to enemies, You can get a crit for 300. It's not bad. But its special attack is you get this ball circle created underneath, and if you charge it, it gets bigger. And it does good damage, but it also pushes some enemies away. Like this infected over here got hit for almost nothing, like 27 damage, but it got pushed. So it's not bad for a horde. Where it lacks, in my personal opinion, is range. Like, you have to pretty much aim really, really far. Like, you see, I can't even reach that enemy from all the way over here. There's a staff that can reach it pretty easy. Right. Now let's look at the slightly more armored enemies. I'm gonna charge it fully. That's not bad. We'll do it one more time. And then we get to kill it. It's not bad. It's good for pushing these dudes away. Now let's look at our big boy. Same, pretty good damage. So it is, in my opinion, pretty good stuff. I don't like to use it, but that doesn't mean it's bad stuff. Obviously, charge rate, warp resistance, coil speed, blast radius, damage will be different than yours. Personally, I would recommend damage, blast radius, charge rate, and warp resistance. Charge rate, not so much. It's probably like the 4th stat. Coil speed is also decent, but let's look at where you at staff. Alright. So damage, obviously we know it's damage. Primary action, epicenter damage, auto blast damage, blast radius. It makes sense, how big the explosion is. Charge rate, how fast you charge to do your charge attack, that circle. Warp resistance, how much peril you generate per attack, be it light or charged. And coil speed, how fast you coil it, and how fast the peril decay is. Right, so normally for me it's damage. For this one, be blast radius. Warp resistance, so I can spam it a little more. Charge rate will be number 4 stat, just so I can charge it faster, even if it's like half a second, just so I can spam it a little. And coil speed should be decent, just so I can quickly get rid of my peril. Now let's look at staff number 2, which is the Surge staff. In this one, you have damage, crit bonus, charge rate, warp resistance, coil speed. So for this one, I would definitely go damage, crit, warp resistance, and charge, coil speed. Crit, well, that's so you do more crit damage. Damage we know, charge rate we know. We just talked about it, warp and coil we know. So, I forgot to put it on. So cool. Your primary attack is same thing. Oh, and another wonderful thing about staffs, there's no ammo consumption, which is why I love Psykers. But you do about the same damage on the normal, as the previous staff. Now let's look at its charged attack, which is a lightning. You generate decent warp, but warp generation is depending on your warp resistance and stuff. Right? It doesn't do too much damage. You know, it doesn't have a big of an impact as the trauma. Now let's look at slightly more armored enemies. You can still one-shot the ones that you're aiming. You know, not bad, but not the greatest. It will CC them for a bit, so that could help. But if you want to CC, there's Smite. Now let's look at the armored. Does more damage than the trauma. But again, it's just one enemy versus being able to push that enemy, giving you a little bit more time. Alright. Now let's look at the big boy. Also more damage. So it's not a bad staff, but just not being able to have the same impact as the trauma with pushing the enemies away. And it has a better range, as you can see, than trauma. But just by a little bit. Maybe, probably about the same. Maybe slightly better. But personally, I wouldn't use it just because, you know, you're only hitting one enemy. And you're CCing it for like a second. Versus the trauma, you can hit it for a lot of damage. Not just one enemy, but multiple. Excuse me. Whew. But you also make them fly. Giving you a little bit more time of relax. Now let's look at the third staff you unlock. It is a Voidstrike. We have damage, charge rate, warp resistance, blast radius, coil speed. Put it on real quick. Damage we know, charge rate we know how fast it's charged, warp resistance how much peril you generate, coil speed how fast it decays, or how much it decays, and how fast you can get rid of it. And the blast radius, how big the blast is. Your primary attack is same. But your charged attack is well, same thing as primary, but bigger explosion, bigger damage. It's charged, pretty much primary. Now, let's look how much it does on the big boys. Does not bad. Does 800. Can hurt a lot, you know. And let's look at the big boy. Still does pretty good damage. And it pushes him. It doesn't have the same impact as the trauma, you know. And by that I mean, like, it doesn't have the radius that it can push the enemies away. But here's why I prefer this staff over trauma. You see our big boy all the way over there. We're at the end. We got rid of him. We pretty much can snipe with this staff. We can get rid of enemies from further away. So if you have a team and we see a bunch of Reapers or Bulwarks or anything like that, or even Maulers or just any bunch of enemies, you can use it to snap the enemies, dealing damage from further away to where they're not where they're not a huge threat. Which is why I like this staff. You know? And you can quickly spam it. You know, you can push some of the enemies away. So that's probably why it's my favorite. Number 2 would be trauma. But let's talk about the last staff that you unlock, which is Purgatus. I probably butchered it. I apologize. In this one, you have damage, cloud radius, burn, warp resistance, and coil speed. We know about the damage. It's how much damage you do. Your cloud radius, effective range, area of effect, and how much area suppression you have. Burn, how much damage over time stacks you can get, and damage over time application rate. Warp resistance we know, peril stuff, and coil speed we know. Now, this staff is different because primary attack is not a ball. It's, well, a little bit of a burn. It's not same burn as like a flamer. It's different because from what I was told and from everything I looked up, flamer can apply up to 16 stacks. This can apply infinitely. No, it doesn't do as much damage. You see, we did 42. Now let's do, charged. We got rid of it pretty fast. Let's look at the slightly more armored enemy. 65, and it ticks at 2. Now let's do it charged on this dude. We got rid of it pretty decently fast. No, the range is kind of crappy. Let's look at this dude. 65 and 2. Now if we charge it, we'll wait till he's done burning. Come on, you can finish it. There we go. If we charge it and hold it, as you can see, he's taking 430. Boom, and he dies. I'm not even gonna do primary attack on our big boy over here. We're gonna do a fully charged. And how much we get rid of him. As you can see, it does no damage pretty much against, well, super heavy armor. The dudes that you definitely want to be scared of. The dudes that, as you can see, will one tap you with this. So that's why I don't like it. It doesn't mean it's the worst weapon. You can use it. It's not bad for CC. If you just charge it and you push the enemies away. It's not bad for a horde. But you usually have smite for a horde that you can deal with more. And you can see you got rid of them a lot faster. Or you have a sail. The crystals, the bees that would deal with them. So you want something that can put decent damage on the big dudes. And yes, you can use your sword. And you seen I did more damage with the light attack of my sword. Well, special attack with my sword. More damage than the full staff. So that's why I personally don't like the Purgatus staff. That's why I think it's probably among the bottom of the tier. So by preference and by everything I've seen, here's the ranking of the staff. Complete garbage is Purgatus. Then probably one above that would be Surge. And then probably among the best two, well, the best two is Trauma and Voidstrike. It just depends on what you want to do with your staff. Do you want to be a little more sniper and hit enemies from further away, or do you want to be a little more dealing with enemies up close? Now, if you want to deal with enemies further away and kind of snipe them, Voidstrike, which is also will allow you to deal with snipers. Versus Trauma Force staff, which will allow you to deal with enemies up close. Stuff like if you have a horde, you can use it on the ground. Boom, you push the enemies away. Voidstrike staff will allow you to do this somewhat same, but it doesn't have the same impact as the Trauma. I personally prefer Voidstrike, but if you use Trauma staff, it's still cool. But with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this kind of helped you figure out which staff is better and which staff you want to use. If you use the Purgatus, that's totally fine. It's just I would not recommend using it in the higher tier Indemnation, especially Maelstrom or even Auric type of missions. But before we finish this, I just want to remind that if we can get to 500 subs by November 1st, I'll be doing a $50 gift card giveaway. If you get it by November 12th, it'll be $25 gift card giveaway. But with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to stay awesome. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.